Shalom, I'm Dr. Deanna Dye with Foundations in Torah. We're going to talk about a unique expression, out of his belly will flow rivers of living water. What does that really mean? We first have to look at John chapter 7. And in John 7, 37 through 38, you all know this, it says, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly will flow rivers of living water." This he spoke of concerning the Spirit, whom those believing in him would receive. Now this particular verse takes place in the context of John 7 through 9, which is Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. And there's a special ceremony that went on at that time called the Simcha Beit HaShoeva, or the joy of the house of the water drawing. To set up the stage in John chapter 7, it's the final day of Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, or the day of the great salvation. This particular ceremony was done every morning. However, on this day, this was the day of great, intense joy for that deliverance and salvation. And you might be familiar with the scripture in Isaiah 12:3, "Therefore with joy shall you draw water out of the wells of salvation." So this is related to Sukkot. This is when this verse is sung. And the wells of salvation is referring to the Pool of Siloam, the Pool of Siloam, that's the Greek name. And this intense joy is reserved for this Nisuch Hamayim, the pouring of the water on the altar. And the water was drawn out of the Pool of Siloam, which was located down below the Temple Mount, where the three valleys met, and which happened to be inside the walls, though. And so the high priest is going to take that water. He's going to dip it into the Pool of Siloam, and he's going to take a very small amount. He's going to make his way back up to the Temple Mount to pour out that water. Now, at the time, and early in the Temple period, we have a picture here with Hezekiah's Tunnel. At his time, the water system was outside the city's defensive system, so there was a security weakness. Hezekiah's Tunnel allowed the water to be brought inside the city and protect it from the enemy. And so the tunnel was carved in rock, not a straight line. It went from the Gihon Spring all the way down to the Pool of Siloam. The picture, according to the sages, is that of a birth canal, so that the Gihon was the womb of creation, and the water that came from there went down through the canal and, of course, ended up in the Pool of Siloam, or the Pool of Siloam. And so from the womb, the Gihon through the birth canal, this is our imagery here of the Spirit coming forth from that water. And so the word Gihon originally is Giach, which can be translated stomach or belly. It means something to burst forth, or a fountain gushing, is like in a birth from the belly or from the womb. So Gihon actually means to gush out, that is water gushing out, speaking of a fountain. Interestingly enough, the Gihon was called the Virgin's Fountain, or the Spring of Miriam. That's interesting. In Arabic, it was called the Fountain of the Mother of the Steps. Legend had it that Miriam washed Yeshua's infant clothes in these waters. Of course, that's a legend. But these waters were associated with the Spirit. So the water source for the Siloam is the Gihon. Gihon meaning belly, but more particularly meaning womb. Out of his womb will flow rivers of living water, speaking of the fountain of living water that flows to the Siloam. And of course, this is the place where Nathan anointed Solomon king over all of Israel, that is at the Gihon. It's the main source for water for Jerusalem. It's a reliable source of a drinking supply of water. The Gihon is considered to be the river of the creation of the world that went through the Garden of Eden and supplied water to that garden. So again, it was considered part of the water system that ran under the threshold of the temple. It said that the Gihon was the water under the Temple Mount, literally. And you can read that in Ezekiel 47, talking about the water running down on the right side of the altar. Revelation tells us this river of life, of water of life, that was sparkling and crystal-like, flowing from the very throne of God, speaking of the Lamb as well. So the high priest carried the water up to the Temple Mount, and in particular to the altar. So this pouring out of the water on the altar at this time, the pouring out of the wine libation at the same time, he carried a golden flax up the altar ramp. And there were little basins there. One was a silver, Actually, they were both silver basins where the water and the wine were poured out. They were fixed on top of the altar. They sat next to one another. And so they would be poured out. The water would have been poured out in one of these little basins, and it would flow down under the altar, eventually down into the Kidron Valley. And the idea in the picture here is that the altar is like a heart, and the water being poured out on the heart, like the Spirit being poured out on the heart of a man, and going down into the Kidron Valley, the place of the dead, so that ultimately the dead would be raised to life. And so the Shiloach represents that, the Spirit of God. Hope that helps. See you next time. Shalom.
Bible Interact is a group of Bible scholars and biblical archaeologists who promote the Hebraic nature of Scripture and view the two Testaments as one unified message. They explain how they use a first-century approach to searching the Scriptures, and they share their methods and discoveries for discussion and dialogue. They invite your comments and participation on BibleInteract.tv.